Hello, this is Jon Speelman with the latest version of my monthly column for Chess Space, what used to be an Agony column and is now just a freestyle. And it's number 240 in fact, and it's for the first Sunday in June, which I guess is the 7th, which must be today, I guess. So, I'm going to go... this is a column, and I've entitled it, what have I entitled it? Seeing the Whole Board. And I've talked about how my eyes are worse than usual at the moment because the frame cracked. So actually, I've got my machine set up for high contrast, which is white on black, but it looks pretty ugly. And for instance, these diagrams don't come out properly at all. You'll be able to see it, I won't. So basically, I talked about how, I said I can't see it properly, but how you have to see the whole board in order to make sure that things work. And I gave a couple of examples, which I've given before. The first one is this one, which is white to play and win. And then what is the difference if you put the white h pawn on h3? So that's the first one of those, and I'll come to them in a minute. I'll do all the solutions in a minute. And then I talked about my eyes and how annoying it is, but I'll get some new glasses in a while, which will be great, and I can operate. And then I've got this diagram, which is Kuzmin against Sveshnikov, and some other games, but Kuzmin against Sveshnikov is the most famous maybe, where white has both bishops aimed against black's king, and after deflecting the black knight you can play a double bishop sacrifice, is the idea. If you play a double bishop sacrifice at once, it doesn't really work. So that's that one. And then I've got a third example. The third example, my friend Jonathan Mestel, I first met him in real 1969 when we played in the British Under-14 Championships, and I won, in fact. Then we were first equal in the Under-16s in Coventry, I think, 1970. So that's a long time ago. I've known Jonathan for yonks. He came round on Saturday, which is yesterday as I'm doing this. He'd been doing something, he'd been given a simultaneous for Imperial College, which is where he works. He's a professor of applied maths. And he came round to us to see us for the afternoon and till the early evening, and we chatted about lots of things. But at some stage I told him about what I was doing this column on, because I couldn't think for what my final example would be. And he had this vague memory that he sent a letter to the BCM, to the British Chess Magazine. He said, about 30 years ago. It turned out to be 1999, in fact. And he thought there was a game where he'd had this idea that the change of the queen side completely changed the game, but he couldn't remember. And then he thought a bit more, and he thought it was the game Alexander Kotov against Gary Lane. And I looked it up and I couldn't find it. In fact, it doesn't exist. That's not a game that happened. I got in touch with Jon Saunders, who is the boss in charge of BritBase, which is a resource for Brits. I mean, for anybody, but it's got lots and lots of British games and all the BCMs as well, British chess magazines, many of them, at least in digital form. And he has a complete set of BCMs, and I phoned him and said, can you look this up for me? And he did very kindly. And he found, so the BritBase Supremo, he found that it was actually the game Kotov against Glenn Lambert. And it was in a tournament called the King John's Cup, which was in a hotel, which is about 15 minutes away from me by bus, maybe 25 minutes walk. It's actually on the way to where my son now lives, which is not much further. And this tournament, there was an incident in which Kotov adjourned against Lambert, and persuaded him to resign, though actually it would have been more apposite for Kotov to resign himself, since after the move that he sealed, he was in fact dead lost. So this was quite an incident, and there was quite a hoo-ha at the time. So I'm going to show you these games now. Oh, and I've got the double bishop sacrifice, the stem game of the double bishop sacrifice, which is the game Lasker v Bauer, which I knew, of course, but I didn't know it was Amsterdam 1889. And I found this in Megabase, and actually it's such a famous game that the annotations were by no less than Garry Kasparov, and I've left them more or less intact. Okay, we'll start with this. This is my back rank thing, and you play Queen A7. That's the only move, which is a deflection, because you're trying to do this, basically. Can I do an alt? Why can't I do an alt and then push an arrow through here? That's what I'm trying to do. And to that square, obviously. And it deflects. And, for instance, after here, which is one of the better moves, queen takes rook, queen takes queen, check, take, and mate follows. So that's the first one. I'm going to do them fairly quickly, as I said, because I'm really... Okay, and the thing is, why is it different if the pawn's an h3 in this one? And the reason is that after queen a7, because you've played h3, this pawn no longer controls... Sorry, that's not the one I want. Oh, blast it. Go away. And you go away again, and you go away again, and you go away again. No? Blast you. Oh, we'll leave it, because it'll revert if I don't save it. And the point is that there's this move. Deflecting, if rook takes rook, just queen takes queen, and if pawn takes rook, queen takes queen, and it's check. So I'm not even going to save this because I slightly messed it up. No, I won't save it. Right. So that's the first one. And that's an example I use quite often for new people I'm teaching, just to see how they get on with the tactics and to get the idea over that you have to look at the whole board. It isn't just one sector. The whole thing has to be considered, at least briefly. Often it doesn't matter, actually. So the next one is the famous game Kuzmin against Sveshnikov, and I'll quickly go through the game. I'm not going to do very much about it. It's a famous game, as I said. 94, there's queen d4, isn't there? This is just not working in this position. Something has gone wrong. Knight d5 has to be a bad move. I don't know what you should play, but it's a mistake. And now, at the moment, the double bishop sacrifice doesn't work. So if you go bishop h7 check here, check here. The knight takes f4 is a good defence. Excellent defence. Rook takes f4, f5. And I think it's even at this point. Maybe it's already good for black. Yeah, I mean, it just isn't working. And therefore, if we go back to the diagram, the move you play to deflect the knight is this one. If they don't take the knight, if they move the rook, you'll play knight takes knight and play your sacrifice. If they play knight takes knight is what was played in the game. I've also, of course, got the main move would probably be, yeah, bishop c5 loses the exchange. Just a bishop takes and bishop takes rook. So bishop c5. Oh, you do it this way, actually. This is particularly unpleasant. This is a really unpleasant position. You've got a huge attack. You don't do that. The main line goes knight takes knight, check here, takes. You always have to look and see if f5 or something works, but it doesn't really here. There's nothing very much to say, or f6, queen g6. So takes here, 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 and white wins. So that's the first one of these. The second one, you put the pawn on a3. And the thing is that in this position, after knight b6, you go rook b8. So you take, queen checks, king here, check here. And the problem is that this move is now defense. Now f5 wins outright in the, if the pawn's an a2 then f5 is winning. I should perhaps go back to that in a minute, I'd forgotten that variation. But here there's that move because a3 has been played, and this move in fact is enough to draw. White should now really make a draw. If rook takes rook, I think, if rook takes rook, sorry, rook takes b3 here, actually it's black who's better at this point. So you mustn't do that. So that is quite a surprising little thing maybe. It just happens to be true. And let's just go back to the previous one and we'll just look at the variation with queen a2. Sorry, after knight b6 I need to look at, what I will need to look at is blast. So after knight b6, instead of knight takes b6, you play rook b8. Rook b8. No, you want to go rook b8. Why is this being so bloody? Okay. No, I want to go rook b8. This is really being quite badly behaved, isn't it? Rook b8. Oh, right, okay, let's just do it. Let's just go to rook b8. So you move. And you win the rook. That's the point. Okay, so that's why that works. And then the third one of these, if you take off the a pawn, it's trivial. You just go, you don't even bother to play knight b6. Why would you bother? You're mating the guy easily. Because you have rook a3, and then this rook is coming over, and there's absolutely nothing to do here at all. No sort of defence. So the game ends. Yeah, you just play that and resigns. Okay, so with the with the a pawn on a2 as in the game, it works. With the a pawn on a3, knight b6 doesn't work so well, and without the a pawn it's a trivial win because you have to move rook a3. Right, now finally I've got Lasker Bauer and I've got Kasparov's excellent notes. You can read them. I hope there were half of them in German, and I believe I removed all the German bits, which I didn't need to. I mean, you know, it doesn't hurt, but I thought I'd make it monoglot. So anyway, in this game, it went knight here, takes. This is the stem game. Well done, Emanuel Lasker. Then you do have to look at f5, but it doesn't work. He went here. And the point is that at this stage, black has more than enough material for the queen. If white didn't have a hit, if the pawn was an e6, then the game would be... you'd have to make a draw. But with the pawn on e5, which it had to for the queen to come across, you have to move queen d7. So you win one of the bishops, and it is winning. And this is what happened. Did he resign? What did he do? What actually happened in the game? Oh, it's saying, yeah, okay. And the other game, okay. It's basically very trivial. I mean, you're going to win this easily. You're attacking, and he did this or something. And he resigned, I assume. Okay, so that is that. And then I've got this example, which is this adjourned position. We could get to it, or I'll just get to the adjourned position. So a couple of moves earlier, your man could have drawn with g3. It would have drawn trivially, because white must give perpetual check with the g6 rook. But black went there, and Kotov, slightly hubristically maybe, if that's... So slightly chancing his arm, he went check here. And he now... This was the time when there were still sealed moves. And he went rook to there check, and he said... Thus he spake. He said, rook checks. Sorry, rook c6. He said, let's go back. Rook checks. And he said, oh, I'm winning. After king takes, rook e6 check. But this very simple move turns the position through precisely 180 degrees, because it's going to be mate in 3 or 4 more moves. Black is just going to mate white. So this was a ridiculous contention, and as I said, I think if he thought 3.6 microseconds about his great and glorious opponent's contention, he would have laughed in his... Well, he wouldn't laugh in your face, you just say, I'm terribly sorry, but what is your answer to that move? Preferably smiling sweetly. That's what I'd have done. The sweeter the smile, the more unpleasant it is. So rook to there check loses, and the other move you can play that... Yeah, there are a couple more moves. There's rook takes a6, just loses to g3. Nothing happens at all because you control... there's nothing to be done there at all. But rook g7 check is quite interesting. Check here, take, check first. No, takes is more important actually. And that should be promoted. Promote variation. Because after rook here, you just win. But, and that's very simple. But it turns out, I mean, you can go rook d6 check as well here, but then you just play king b8, and that's the end of that. I don't know, what's the point of a5? What is he talking about this? Some ridiculous piece of analysis, and obviously the pawn queens. So that is actually losing. But the point is that when we get to, when we get down, I thought there was another diagram further down here. What has happened? Why is this being so bloody? Maybe it isn't. Maybe I lost the diagram. Yeah, the right move is rook c6 or rook d6, and they draw. But after rook g7 check, do I have another in the list? Do I have another? Do I have a second one with the pawn? I don't actually know, so I don't do that. Haven't done that. And the thing is that after I think it looks like I put this in the text, but not in the game. Sorry. So rook g7. Oh, blast it. Sorry, I'm being... Rook g7 check. King to there. Rook takes pawn. Rook e7. Check. Here. Takes. Takes. And we need a diagram. That's the point, yes. Okay. And we need this as a main line. Yes, that's the point. And were that pawn not an a4, then just rook a4 would win. Because, yeah, you'd have rook takes e4 check. So that it makes a complete 180-degree turn whether the pawn is an a4 or a3 or a2 or not on the board at all. So, that is the final position, and many thanks to Jonathan Mestel, Grandmaster Jonathan Mestel, and to John Saunders, the head of BritBase. Right, I'm going to stop now. I hope you've enjoyed this. I may have been slightly chaotic, because as I said, when we finish this, I'm going to turn it back to high definition. Is it high contrast or high definition? Whichever it is, where you have white on black, and I will be able to see a bit better. But I thought for you it would be a lot easier to see it this way. Right, let's just check. We are actually recording, or we'll scream, and we are. And I'll see you next month, whenever it is, the first Sunday of next month. Okay? Have fun till then. Cheers.